It's time to go on the record with WRAL News.
Thanks so much for joining us for On the Record. I'm your host, Lena Tillett. Less than 24 hours after a debate performance some Democrats are calling shaky, President Joe Biden held a boisterous rally in Raleigh. Thousands filled the Jim Graham building at the state fairgrounds to cheer on Biden, who's now facing sharp questions about his ability to serve another 4 years as president. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump was to our north campaigning with Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin near Norfolk. Trump and his supporters are feeling really good about his debate performance. However, political fact checkers say the former president told dozens of falsehoods throughout the debate. Tonight, I am sitting down with top party leaders to get their reaction to the debate, to talk about the way forward, and we will get a sense of their strategy for both campaigns for the next 130 some days. At Thursday's debate, we heard first from President Biden. So tonight we will begin with the Republican side. Jonathan Felts is a state Republican operative helping with the Trump campaign. So glad you could join us this evening and be here in person. Thanks so much. So how do you feel that Trump did in the debate?
I think President Trump had a great night at the debate. I think the American people have fundamentally made the decision to fire Joe Biden already. I think what they're trying to decide is, do they want to rehire Donald Trump? I think here in North Carolina, they've made that decision. They do want to. But in a lot of ways, President Biden right now is in that point where it's kind of like it's time to take the keys away from Grandpa. And so to continue this metaphor, all Donald Trump had to do is keep it between the white lines and show people he could drive us back to making America great again. He had a really successful debate from that perspective, and Joe Biden had a disastrous night. Do you think it was enough to sway unaffiliated voters, obviously the largest voting bloc in North Carolina? I think that, I think a lot of these voters, they've got concerns. I mean, they're suffering from the economic distress caused by Joe Biden's reckless spending and the resulting inflation. They're suffering from their concern about America's standing in the world. Joe Biden has weakened that beyond measure. And so they've got a lot of concerns. And so what they saw on Thursday night was a president, in terms of President Trump, who was confident and competent and able to do the job.
You know, I thought it was interesting just on the unaffiliated voters part, some of whom in polls say that they don't feel comfortable voting for a convicted felon if the debate performance was enough for them.
I feel very confident it was enough for them. I think that, first and foremost, I think that conviction you refer to is going to be kicked out on appeal. I think that was an egregious miscarriage of justice on the part of Alvin Bragg up in New York. I think it confirms what a lot of conservatives believe already, that Democrats are out to get Trump no matter what, even they have to make up charges. The DA ran a campaign on the pledge of, I'm going to go get him. I've never heard any law enforcement official, any sheriff, any prosecutor campaign on a pledge like that. And I think it was like a partisan witch hunt. And I think that's what a lot of people, including unaffiliated voters, see it as.
I do want to just have a little fact check. That was the Attorney General. That wasn't the DA. DA bragged to say that. So in his defense, he did not say anything about going after Trump during his campaign. But I did want to play a soundbite for you and get your reaction on the other side from the debate. This is one fact-checked comment by Trump by the debate host CNN afterward. Let's take a listen.
Okay.
He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 National Guard troops on January 6th. There's no evidence she even got such an offer. It was the president, not Pelosi, who had the power to deploy the D.C. Guard.
So we know this is another vulnerable place for former President Trump. Why make that claim that it was Nancy Pelosi's fault with the National Guard? Why not be more contrite on the issue?
Well, I think the key issue here is we're talking about what is motivating people to go vote. I don't think anyone's going to go vote based on something President Trump said about Nancy Pelosi as relates to January 6th. I think the much bigger issue that voters will be looking at, including these unaffiliated voters, is who supported defund the police and who supports the police, who supports law enforcement officers. And crime is one of the top issues in this election right now because Democrats are perceived to be weak on that issue and Republicans are seen to be very strong on that issue. And so, to answer your question, I don't think anyone's voting on that issue, and I don't put a lot of thought into it.
So you don't think he should be contrite at all as it relates to January 6th and what we all watched with our eyes?
Look, I think January 6th was a bad day. I think that, everyone involved with it probably regrets what happened, but I think he's in a great position right now to win this election.
So we talked about Biden's rally in Raleigh at the state fairgrounds. A lot of the speakers, it was interesting, really emphasized that Joe Biden was a decent and good man, an honorable man, and said that former President Trump was a liar and lacked a moral compass. Do you think that will be effective with voters?
No, look, I think voters have decided that Joe Biden has to go. It's not personal, and like I said, I'll go back to my grandpa reference. No one says grandpa's a bad guy. It's just grandpa can't drive the car anymore. We got to take the keys away. And, you try to do that before grandpa puts the car in the ditch. Right now, Joe Biden's put the economy in the ditch. He's put our standing within the world in the ditch. People are ready for him to go. They want a competent leader, and that leader is President Donald Trump.
Let's talk about what's ahead. What do you think Trump needs to do, feeling the momentum, obviously, from the debate, to shore up support in North Carolina?
Look, I think he's already got a ton of support here in North Carolina. He's won the state twice. I think he's well on his way to win it the third time. We've got a great grassroots infrastructure that's ready to go. It's basically the same team that ran the state in 20 and 22. That's a plug-and-play system. The Democrats are having to completely rebuild their grassroots system right now. Roy Cooper, when he shut down schools and businesses for COVID, he also shut down Democratic grassroots efforts. And so they're starting from the ground up. Donald Trump has a great team in place here, a great group of volunteers ready to go, and they're fired up and energized. Democrats have a massive enthusiasm gap, both for Joe Biden and Josh Stein. Republicans are really excited to go vote for Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. So I think he's in a great spot to win. Well,
recent polls do show that Josh Stein is well up against Mark Robinson.
I haven't seen polls showing he's well up. I've shown everything I've seen has been within the margin of error, both when Robinson has been up and both when Josh Stein has been up. I feel, and look, anyone that says there's going to be a poll indicating that someone's up by 10 points, that's not going to happen in North Carolina. All the polls will be neck and neck from now until roughly early October. These unaffiliated voters, the genuine undecided voters, not unaffiliated, but the ones who are genuinely undecided. In the 22 cycle, those are roughly 6 to 10% any given day. They don't make their decision until early October. And the first decision is, will they go vote? And I think in this race, they very well might not go vote.
Do you have a preference on a running mate for Trump?
I do not.
You don't think he needs to have, or she needs to have certain characteristics to complement?
I think that's a outdated model. I think 20 years ago, that was something that's really important. I think now people are going to go vote based on President Trump. The running mate is somewhat of an afterthought. He's got a great pool of candidates to pull from, and I think any of them will be a great vice president.
What does the former president need to do with suburban voters who are women in North Carolina? Obviously, the issue of abortion came up last night. That is a top issue for many women and many voters in general. And former President Trump said that it was a great thing that Roe v. Wade was overturned, when we know polls show that a lot of people were uncomfortable with that decision. What does he need to do on that issue?
Sure. Again, during the 2022 race, we heard all about these independent women who really care about abortion. If you're a single issue voter, you've known who you're voting for dating back a year and a half ago, probably. What we found with our polling with these people is that, yes, they may be pro-choice, but they also really cared about the economy. They also were really concerned about grocery prices. They're also really concerned about gas prices. They wanted to make sure that their kids, when they graduated from college, would have a good economic opportunity to be able to go out and get their own job, get their own homes. And they weren't voting on just one issue. And so I think Donald Trump just needs to keep doing what he's doing, with the focus being, make America great again, with an America First priorities that prioritizes and promotes American jobs as the top priority.
All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So coming up, I talked to North Carolina's House Minority Leader Robert Reeves about Biden's performance. Stay with us. Yes.
You can talk to you.
Representative Reeves, how are you?
Wonderful. How you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for doing this. I can't see you right now, but I know you're in a quiet place because I don't hear anything else, so I appreciate that.
Well, I'm actually continuing to walk towards the quiet place. Every time I get more quiet, it gets loud, so yeah.
Okay, as long as you stay still wherever you are, that's...
Oh, yeah, I will.
Okay, perfect. So I have a little intro going into you, and including a little part where President Biden talks about the fact that he didn't debate well last night. So you'll be able to hear that.
Okay.
Okay. A recent USA Today article indicated the Biden campaign sees a big opportunity in North Carolina. They lost the state by less than 2 points in 2020, and the campaign says they only had a small operation here at that time. That explains why the president made Raleigh his first stop, but even he acknowledged his debate did not turn out as planned.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
And joining us now is Representative Robert Reeves, who's on the road after the legislative session ended, so we appreciate him joining. Representative Reeves is a Democrat, so I don't want to make any assumptions. How do you think that Biden did in the debate on Thursday?
I think he and I are in complete agreement that he could have had a better debate. I don't think there's any issue about that.
One of Biden's...
I think that...
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
One of Biden's biggest weaknesses in polls is that voters think he's too old, and the debate was supposed to help with that. I mean, did he successfully change their minds?
No, not with the debate. I don't believe that happened. I don't think that he or anybody else would try to state that happened. But I also think that when it comes down to it, voters are going to make their decision based on what they believe each candidate stands for and what their performances have been. Both have had 4-year terms. And so I think it's going to be a simple thing. I don't think that anybody went into the debate last night expecting him to be anything other than his age and what he was doing. And I think the same thing for former President Trump. I mean, they're both similar ages, similar backgrounds, and it's just going to be about principles. And those decisions are going to be made a lot later on.
So I'll ask you flat out, do you think he's mentally fit enough for another 4 years?
Yes.
I wanted to show our viewers the opinion page on Friday from the New York Times. Headline after headline from very respected writers calling for Biden to step out of the race after his performance, saying that it was a red flag and that he has time to make that decision. Do you think he should?
That's not my call, and I'm not dodging the question in that. Here's kind of what I would say. I don't think any of us want to be judged on our worst day, and I don't think anybody should be judged on their best day. If you heard him today at the rally, you would have a completely different opinion than what you would have come out of last night with. And I think that goes the same for former President Trump. I don't think anybody would want him to be judged on his best day or on his worst day. They'd want him judged on the record that he's had. And so I can appreciate when people make those kind of statements, but I think to be candid with you, that's really what's gotten wrong with politics right now, are hot takes. And it's a hot take to say that you didn't know there was a presidential election coming in 2024 and that if you had other candidates that you believed in or supported, that you shouldn't have gotten in behind them then. So I think kind of saying in July, oh, maybe we need to rethink this. I struggle with people who are political writers making that decision now. Based on the debate. And I don't mean to be mean about it, but I mean, just that's a reality. Is if you just realized last night that he was an older man and that he had bad nights, that's tough.
At the rally, obviously, we saw a much different Biden. I thought it was interesting that everybody kind of had a nothing to see here approach. Governor Cooper said he's a great and decent man, and that talked about all he's done with creating jobs in this country. So what do you think the president needs to do now to shore up support, specifically among Democrats ahead of the convention?
Well, I think he's got to do what he's doing today. I mean, he landed at RDU at 2:45 this morning, and he was pretty wide and spry, and candidly probably doing better than I could do off of a couple of hours sleep and a hard debate and coming out to a rally. But again, it's one of those things where we've got to make decisions as voters, all of us. And I think your decision has got to be, where do you want to go from here? because there are really two options. There's not going to be a third option that's going to win. So there are two options. And I think you've got to look at the respective records and really where you want to see the country go and where you want to see your particular state go. And in this particular case, I think the thing I like about Governor Cooper, among many things, is that he recognizes as being a former legislator, really where it all stands. And whoever you elect for president, whoever you elect for governor, a lot of what's going to happen is going to depend on the people that she or he has around them. A lot's going to happen depending on the Congress or the legislature that she or he inherits. And so I think it's really that's really what we've depended on over the last 4 years. That's what we depended on the previous 4 years. And that's what we'll depend on going forward. And I definitely am not one of those who say nothing to see here, but I am one of those to say that at some point in time, we as voters have to get engaged, have to learn the system, have to learn the process, and make decisions based on that. And I don't believe in my heart that this is any different than an athletic contest in the sense of, do you judge a player on the first quarter that they had? I mean, we just had an NBA Finals. You judge them on the first quarter that they had, or you judge them on whether they can win the whole game. And I think what he's shown is that he can win the whole game.
We should say tens of millions of people, though, were watching the debate. CNN's flash poll afterward clearly indicated that a majority of viewers thought that Trump won the debate. It was a huge opportunity to show that he had the stamina and the communication skills to continue to be president. And it sounds like a lot of Democrats don't think he took advantage of that opportunity.
No, and I don't think there's anybody denying that. I mean, I'd be very surprised if you have Democrats that are saying things went great last night, or you had Democrats that were saying this was a perfect showing and that this should assuage all fears. But again, I would say then who is this that we're seeing today at the rally? And if we're seeing that person at the rally, then which one do you judge him on? Do you judge him on last night? Do you judge him on the rally? Or do you judge him on all the things that he's stood for and all the things that he's accomplished during his time in office? And so I definitely appreciate your point. And I understand that point. I understand CNN's point. But I also understand that there are lots of issues that voters are going to have to judge everybody that they're seeking to elect on. And the only way that you get to address those issues is by making a decision on who you've got available. Right. And I do believe we're at a point right now where, I mean, you've got two completely different candidates.
Really quickly, I only have 20 seconds for you. If there's an enthusiasm issue, are you worried about down ballot candidates in North Carolina?
I'm always worried about enthusiasm, not because of the down ballot. I don't think we've ever really operated as a down ballot state because, I mean, we elected Jesse Helms and Jim Hunt at the same time. What I am encouraged by is that people are fired up and ready to go, and they care about their local races. And I think if they care about their local races, that's what's going to matter in North Carolina. So as a North Carolinian, I want to see people pay attention to every single race up and down the ballot.
Representative Reeves, roadside for us. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your insight and your honesty. All right, coming up, we are in the middle of a brutal heat wave, and it is only June. What's driving the temperatures? We talk to a state climatologist next. He was great. He did a good job seeing his head. Oh, Representative Reeves, thank you so much. Oh, okay. Welcome back. This week marked the first dangerous heat wave of the year in our area. Nationwide, more than 1,200 daytime high temperature records were broken from June 1st to the 15th. And this trend has been increasing over the years. Raleigh and Durham are now experiencing 18 days above 95 degrees than they did 5 years ago. And joining us now is Dr. Kathy Dello, a climatologist and the director of the North Carolina State Climate Office. Dr. Dello, it's always wonderful to talk to you, even though I get a little scared every time I talk to you too. So I want to talk about the timing of the streak of these warm temperatures. What does it mean for our climate?
Yeah, so North Carolina's warming, and we're seeing the warming not just in summer, but in other parts of the year when we hadn't expected it before. So our Mays and Junes are getting hotter. We saw 100-degree temperatures this June, but last September we had 100-degree temperatures as well. So the heat's sneaking into the fall.
And you do attribute this heat wave that we're experiencing to the way that our climate is changing.
Yeah, our climate's changing, and we're feeling the impacts here in our backyards in North Carolina.
How should people begin preparing then earlier and earlier in the season?
Yeah, so a lot of us have access to cooling. We're in this cool studio right now in our cool offices, in our cool homes. There are many people who don't have access to air conditioning, or we sometimes only think about the daytime temperatures, but our nighttime temperatures are getting warm too. And if you work outside all day and you go home and you can't afford to turn on your air conditioning, or you may not have air conditioning, it can really stress your body. So there are some low-cost things people can do. Go home and take a shower, soak your feet, soak a towel and put it on you. Eat earlier in the night instead of later in the night, but also know where you can go to cool down and know that heat stress is a really big problem and it doesn't discriminate. Truly anybody can get sick from the heat.
I checked in with WRAL's meteorologists, and they said that it's not necessarily entirely abnormal for there to be back-to-back 90-degree days in June. What makes what you're seeing, though, still concerning to you?
Yeah, it's not entirely abnormal, but we had 14 days in a row above 90, and 2 of those days topped 100 here in Raleigh, so that's concerning. But also the nighttime temperatures. Sunday night was a really tough night. Raleigh-Durham Airport got down to 78 degrees, and we didn't see overnight temperatures like that decades ago. This is not our grandparents' heat.
This year so far is the warmest on record, and ocean temperatures have set records now for more than 15 months. So what can we expect from the hurricane season?
Yeah, so we're looking to the Atlantic, which is starting to heat up, and we're starting to see some activity. We have a very outstanding hurricane forecast and a number of named storms that could form, but also we know in North Carolina it only takes one. So if one of those storms forms and hits our state, then it can be catastrophic. That being said, we are in a drought here in North Carolina, thinking about all the hazards. We do need some rain, and we would like to see some tropical activity, not the very damaging kind, but our farmers are really suffering.
You know, it's so interesting thinking about that just kind of conflict, right? We need the tropical systems to bring us rain in a situation where we're in a moderate drought, but then we also don't want it to be too bad, and we know how warm the water is. I mean, how do you kind of wrap your mind around that discrepancy?
Yeah, it's really tough, and we're thinking about cascading hazards too. So it's really hot, and what happens if a hurricane comes in and knocks out power, knocks out the grid, and then people don't have cooling on these really hot days. So it's difficult for us to wish for one thing, knowing that it can hurt other people. But we know that our corn crop has pretty much been decimated here in North Carolina. Even if we got rain tomorrow, and I know there's some in the forecast, there's no turning around for those farmers.
So I know you study climate in North Carolina specifically. What are other things that you're seeing in terms of its impact on either our infrastructure or agriculture?
Yeah, so we know our cities are hotter than the surrounding areas, and we see that here in Raleigh, that parts of downtown Raleigh are much hotter than cooler areas like Dix Park or greener areas. So that presents an opportunity. We can add green space or greenery to our cities and think about how to cool down some of these areas. But we're also thinking about flooding. Flooding is a risk statewide. We're seeing more intense rainfall when we do have storms, when we're not in a drought. But we're also seeing things like coastal flooding or sunny day flooding. Flooding when there's nothing happening.
So why does that happen?
So the sea level has risen and our ocean's just gotten bigger. Warmer water's bigger, takes up more space. We're also having the ice caps melt and glaciers melt too, adding to that sea level rise. So when the tide comes in, you see places like Beaufort or down east North Carolina have flooding on their roads.
What should the state be doing to better prepare for what sounds like inevitabilities?
Yeah, so we need to keep people safe now and thriving in a changing climate. So we need to provide access to cooling. We need to think about energy equity. A lot of low-income people just don't have the cooling access that a lot of other folks do. We need to protect folks from flooding, but also we need to think about just really sustainable development. We're growing and it's great. We all love North Carolina and we all want to live here, but we've got to welcome those people and keep them safe too.
We only have about 30 seconds. I have something in my throat, excuse me. Tell us about some of the groundbreaking research you all are doing at state.
Yeah, so we work a lot with state agencies to answer some of these questions that they have about how is the rainfall changing, how is the heat changing, and how does it impact North Carolinians. So businesses, we work with transportation engineers to understand how extreme precipitation may impact our roadways. Farmers, ranchers, you name it. People who are planning their weddings call us too.
Oh yeah, that's incredibly important to families for sure. Dr. Dello, thank you so much for your time. Please keep us updated if you all are learning something new about the climate. We need to be letting our viewers know. If you have something to say about tonight's discussion, you can find us on social media.